today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about early warning signs of marriage fatigue and going into emotional debt. My wife says she still loves me, but she's not in love with me anymore. We don't fight, but we don't connect either. What's happening to us? Marriage fatigue is the quiet cousin of emotional debt. There are no explosions, just erosion. Hi, welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. I'm your host, Rich Heller, and today we're talking about, I don't know what's wrong, the early signs of marriage fatigue. And this is spinning off of the last episode. We've been exploring the idea of emotional debt. If your marriage is a bank account, what kind of bank account is it? Is it a high yield CD yielding bank account? Do you have overdraft protection? And where are you? How much is in there? Are you in the overdraft protection, or are you yielding high interest? I like that. Everyone likes high interest. In fact, I think a lot of the complaints my clients have is after a number of years, they feel like interest might be waning. But today, we're talking about what are the signs that your marriage is fatigued and that you might be in overdraft protection. My wife says she still loves me, but she's not in love with me anymore. We don't fight, but we don't connect either. What's happening to us? That is a great question, John, and a common one. And thank you for asking it so vulnerably. A lot of guys would say, my wife says she still loves me, but she's not in love with me, and my marriage feels flat, and I don't even know if I should stay in it. And when you ask the question, what's happening to us? You're showing a willingness to explore, right? As guys, we want to have a goal. Well, what if the goal, before we set the goal, is to explore so that we can better understand? All right, I'm challenging you guys to be more feminine in this regard, because women will explore thoroughly and fearlessly, and we just want to make decisions and fix it. But what if to really fix it, we need to be committed to exploration? Think about that. So let's talk about this question John has. Marriage fatigue is the quiet cousin of emotional debt. There are no explosions, just erosion. It's almost like a silent pickpocket. It's like nickel and diming away your marital investment with bank fees. That's probably the best way to put it, right? If we get into rapid fire emotional debt, into our overdraft protection by fighting and bickering, marriage fatigue is more like you're not fighting and bickering, you're just not doing anything. And the bank is taking, because you're not putting in anything, the bank fees are pulling it down, right? Because here's what you need to get, right? The law of the universe is entropy. Entropy means constant degradation. It doesn't seem like it to us. The earth continues to go around the sun and it continues to spin. But the fact of the matter is, since the Big Bang, since creation, whatever you want to call it, there was a whole lot of energy there, and everything is sort of slowing down, says science. And that's true in everything. If we don't put more energy into it, it slows down. Let's go back to the plate spinning metaphor. You're in a marriage, you have kids, you have work, you're trying to keep all the plates spinning. If you stop paying attention to one of the plates, though, what happens? It gets slower and slower, and eventually it falls off. That's marriage fatigue. Marriage fatigue is where you stop spinning the plate, and it literally pulls energy out of the marriage. Marriage fatigue begins when partners stop growing either individually or together. It might happen if you're both growing individually, completely independent and separate of one another. It will certainly happen if you don't grow the marriage. If you don't grow the marriage, you're not spinning the plate. So you might be spinning the plate of your career, spinning the plate of being a good parent. You might be spinning the plate of your own creative experience. But if you're not spinning the plate of the relationship that supports the marriage is an agreement that it's going to fall off. Love shifts from being alive and curious to being polite and predictable. Alive and curious looks like I'm exercising my love muscle. Hey, how was work today? Fine. Oh, good. Alive and curious is, well, what do you mean by fine? Does fine mean you don't want to talk about it? What made it fine? Right? Love is curious. It really wants to know what's going on. Instead of just checking the box. Ask how work was. Check. Put dinner on the table. Check. Had a few words at dinner. Check. Kiss each other goodnight. Check. You want to be curious. You want to exercise that love muscle. You want to use the energy of that love that you feel for that person, the person who you saw so much in when you were in love. You want to use that energy to remain in curiosity. And by the way, John, there's a lot of confusion about in love. Before we keep going with this, right? In love, studies show, lasts 2 to 3 years and wears off for one person before it does for the other. So it is fully possible to love someone but not be in love with them. But I don't think that's what she means. I think what she means by in love is she's not engaging in her love for who she sees you as becoming. And I think the real danger of marriage fatigue is we stop being invested in our partner. We stop being invested in their success, right? When we're in love, we see them for all they could be. And in the last episode, I kind of made this slip. I said, marriage stops working, or in love stops working, when they stop becoming who we think they should become. And I said, no, I corrected that. But when people say, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, frequently that's what's happened. They see that you are becoming someone different than they hoped you would become. Not that you're not developing, not that you're not growing, not that you're not improving, but they hoped you would show up differently. I've got a couple I'm working with right now where the man's constant complaint is, why don't you stroke my back and my hair like you did when we were dating? I loved that so much. He's not even talking about sex. He's talking about intimate sharing of touch. And that's a big deal for him. And she kind of scoffs it off. She's very successful and busy. And making that connection, having that quality time together where he really feels cared for, that's his love language, is really important. And that's one of the things they're working through. It would be easy for him to say, you're not the person who I hoped you would be. I hoped that you would always be stroking my hair and stroking my back. And now you don't do it as often as you used to. That is not the same thing as I 100% support you in being your best and most fulfilled self. And if that means my back gets stroked a little less, that's okay, because I'm in this for you, and I know you're in this for me, right? I know I'm not, in some ways, the person you hoped that I would be as your partner. But I promise you that because you support me in being the best me that I can, you're going to get parts of me that you didn't dream of. Think about that. So we can focus on what we hoped for when we were in love, or we can look at the new possibilities that are coming out of evolution and growth. In marriage fatigue, each person is developing and growing, but they're not invested in the possibilities of one another. That's part of marriage fatigue. They're off doing their own thing. They're not alive and curious. It's super predictable. What are we doing this weekend? Oh, well, we're going to go to the kids' game, and then we're going to watch some TV, and maybe we'll go to a movie. Check, check, check. Instead of, hey, let's do something different. What's something we all feel passionately about that's really important? Why don't we all plant a tree together? Why don't we all go clean up the riverside together because we care about sustainability? Curious, exploratory, investing your love taking the risk that they might say, plant a tree? Are you freaking kidding me? Oh, what are you on? Well, maybe they say that. Taking a risk, then you might get pushed back, set aside, maybe even feel a little hurt. Curious and being vulnerable. Some couples mistake absence of conflict for health. I want you to know, I'm working with a couple right now that they don't even know, once they complete our positive communication program, I got to find a better name for it. Really, the purpose of the program is to help people end the destructive dynamic and learn how to communicate in a way that allows them to have creative disagreement that generates something new. I have a couple in that program right now that came to me. They're not sure what's going to happen. They're doing the program because they figure if they get divorced, they need to be able to communicate. And if they stay together, they need to communicate. They're so in their corners. They've been apart, avoiding conflict for so long. Their emotions are so wrapped up. They don't know what's next. It doesn't have to be like that. You can come in earlier, is what I'm telling you. Over time, fine becomes the most dangerous word in the relationship. It starts replacing fulfilling. And fulfillment is what we are on the frickin' planet for, people. If you're not growing and feeling fulfillment, then you are on a segue to emotional, spiritual, and eventual physical death. So it's time to find a branch back to purpose and fulfillment individually and as a couple. The impact on the family is dire. Kids start learning from the behavior that you're modeling. They start internalizing it. They lose their why, their purpose. And each of us has a unique why, a unique purpose. We have to. We're like snowflakes. We're all each super unique. There's a lock that each of us are meant to unlock in terms of creating a world where there's greater good and greater happiness and greater harmony. Each one of us is a special key for that purpose. And the home loses its emotional warmth. It doesn't necessarily become dangerous. It just isn't safe. It might be like a well-guarded airport, right? You go through security. It's not dangerous. But are you going to start sharing your deepest feelings in an airport? Probably not. Your home becomes a transition place instead of a place to be. And that, my friends, is no way to live. Let me tell you about Brad and Gwen. They had made it through their baby's first year and thought the hardest part was behind them. But instead of feeling close again, everything felt flat. They were, after a year, functioning well in terms of caring for the baby and paying the bills and kind of keeping the house clean. Let's be honest, when you have a 1-year-old, unless you have a lot of support, that's a challenge. I'm watching one of my kids go through that right now. But did they laugh much? No. Did they laugh together? Heck no. One day, Gwen told Brad she felt alone, lonely even, except when she was with the baby. And even when she was the baby, she felt like she was carrying that load by herself. He was like really caught off guard. He said, "Hey, we're not fighting. Isn't that good? We don't fight." She said quietly, "It's not that we're fighting. It's that we've stopped caring enough to even do that." And Brad was floored. Like, he didn't know how to respond to that because Brad grew up in a high conflict household. He thought not fighting was the goal. Marriage fatigue comes slowly. It catches us off guard. It's often deceptive, showing up as at least we're not doing that. Marriage fatigue is really the result of either checking the box or avoidance of conflict, avoidance of repeating the mistakes our parents made. It's a fear of that we're losing, that there's loss, that we're inadequate. And so we're not contributing to the relationship. And the purpose of the relationship, I've said it before and I'll say it again, the purpose of a marital relationship is to uplift and support one another in growing individually and create a shared vision for you as a couple, as individuals and as a couple, and create a shared vision for you as individuals and a couple, and for your children. Create a shared vision eventually for you as a couple, you individually, your children, their children, and even a shared vision in which you start to see, wow, my parents are checking out soon. How do I help them move on to whatever the next place is for them? That's the evolution of a relationship, the evolution of a family. I don't want to lose what we have. I just want to feel alive again. Can we get that spark back without blowing everything up? That is a phenomenal question. How do you get the spark back without blowing everything up? And the answer is, yeah, think of marriage fatigue as a room that's filling up with gas. Someone left the gas burner on the stove. If you have an electric stove, I'm sorry this metaphor doesn't really work for you, but or maybe they left the propane burner on, whatever you want to call it, but the room is filled with gas. And if you reignite the spark, the reason why you've been avoiding conflict is the whole room is going to explode. The first thing you need to do is empty the room of whatever it is that needs to explode. And that means being able to speak about it in a way that feels safe. So if you're not someone who's been in destructive conflict, you've been avoiding it, there are still communication tools that you need. It's about learning first how to deal with the accumulated gas. The accumulated gas, by the way, is unfulfilled dreams, old emotions from our childhood, feelings of hurt and disappointment from what we expected versus what we got. And lastly, it might be personal disappointments that we're projecting. You got to clear all that stuff out, or first at least be aware of it and open a window. And then once you do that, to reignite the spark, caring communication is what's needed. Because fatigue does not mean the love is gone. It just means it doesn't feel safe enough to let it come out. The key to renewing that spark is not a radical change. It doesn't happen like that. Sorry, bad snap. It's not a grandiose shift. It's about rebuilding first. It's about making it safe enough so that you can express your curiosity in a way that doesn't feel threatening, and that can be challenging. It's about rebuilding, living in individually, right? Gratitude is about setting aside blame, because a lot of the times we've been acting this way because of them. We don't want to blow them up. We don't want to get them upset. They are always whatever word you want to put on it. And we are, oh, perfect. Oh, well, I may have a few faults, but if you weren't evil, I wouldn't have to act this way. We got to set that whole, I'm losing or I'm going to win and you're going to lose. Set that whole thing aside. And we're going to start owning our own stuff. We're going to start getting curious about what's our side of it. We got to get gratitude for what is working. There's a roof over our head and food on the table, clothes on our back, better than 80% of the world. And that opens the door for some hope, because hope starts when couples see fatigue as not failure, but an opportunity to learn, a signal that it's time to reinvest. Right? Because after all, you took a vow, and the vow, it may not have been as strong as death do you part, but they're still pretty strong, right? The truth is that marriage is still one of the deepest emotional commitments that we can make as human beings. Very deep. It takes a lot for us when we make that level of deep, when we make a commitment that deep, it takes a lot for us to set it aside. And it's worth challenging ourselves to grow and be our best self. And if they can't step up to the table, then it might be time to look at living separately. Maybe. Reconnection comes from reinvesting, and reconnection means rediscovering who you are and who you are becoming together. Now, Brad and Gwen, who I was telling you about, this is a true story. It's not necessarily factual for any of my clients. It might be a composite, but it's true because you're going to hear the truth in it. When Brad and Gwen came to us, they didn't want to rescue. They wanted to reset. They were really clear. And we were really clear with them. You got to do the work. Brad and Gwen, you got to do the work. I can't make this happen for you. I can give you the tools. I can be your accountability partner. I can give you my objective third party outside of your marriage view, but the work is on you. Only you can change your marriage. What I can bring to the table is someone who's been there. What I can bring to the table is having worked with countless couples like you. What I can bring to the table is the experience of being a child of divorce. What I can bring to the table is actually having divorced someone where I felt like I had no recourse. I have the whole experience that you're afraid of and are seeking. I can bring that to the table, plus helping tons of couples with a program that's proven to be effective and valid, that has a 93 to 95% success rate. That's what I can bring to the table. But they had to do the work. And through our program, they learned that marriage fatigue isn't about losing love. They found their love again. They realigned their values. They refocused, not just on themselves, but on one another. They let go of what wasn't working. Sometimes people literally need to let go of the marriage that they're in and create a new one through the communication program. And if you can talk about your feelings safely, you can do that, right? I love you, but I'm not in love with you is a way of saying, I love you, and I want to be in love with you again. Let's go back to John. She can be in love with you again, but you got to work at it, bro. You got to work at it. And the in love she's going to experience, the in love with you that she's going to experience is not going to be the same as when you first got married. It's going to be new. It's going to be the basis of mature romance. That word mature makes romance mature romance. Got to find a better way to describe mature romance. I mean, mature romance is where you take the time to court each other every week. What's mature about it is you've got a track record behind you and you've made a lot of mistakes, and so you've learned from it. But the romance part is still curious, still loving, still in discovery. I still need hey, listeners, I want to hear. I need a social media worthy title for mature romance. I'm putting it out there now. I want to hear from you. Mature romance, better way to describe it. Something that sounds a little mature, sounds a little, I don't know, a little 80 or 90-year-old to me. So anyway, back to Brad and Gwen. They started with micro changes, simple things. They just started with their nightly check-ins. They were curious about what was going on. It wasn't just, did my nightly check-in check? It was like, hey, tell me a little more. They went on short walks. They reinstituted date nights. They put boundaries on their phones. They shared what they were grateful for with each other in the morning. They had coffee together in the morning and shared what they were grateful for. They made sure that they understood what time they were both going to be home so that they ate together and so that there was no, I can't believe I've been waiting for you this long. Dinner's been on the table. Where the hell have you been? Or eating separately, like in front of a TV. They made sure that they had time, and it was not comfortable for them at first. I want you to know. Like when you've been leading parallel lives and marriage fatigue is set in, reestablishing a cadence where you court and date, it can be uncomfortable, right? Not all of us had whirlwind romances when we were in the in-love phase where it went amazingly, well from the beginning. It can be uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is okay. You need to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable. A month later, Gwen said, I can't believe it. We're laughing together at ourselves instead of at one another. And I forgot how much I missed that. And Brad said, it's not the same spark we had at 25. It's better. It's grounded. I feel like we're going somewhere together, which was super important to him. Marriage fatigue does not mean something's wrong with your love. It means the marriage has stopped supporting your growth. Or another way to put it, you have stopped supporting the marriage in supporting one another's growth. You stopped investing in the marriage, either because you got distracted or you're afraid of what happens when you light that spark. When you start treating the relationship as an organism, not a machine, an organism that needs special attention, special care to grow and thrive, you will start experiencing synergy in your marriage. Synergy is where the two of you create something that is more expansive and a higher result than either of you could create on your own combined separately, right? You know what I'm saying? It's sort of, synergy would be like if each of you could earn $5 separately, that's $10 total. When you work together for the same amount of time, you earn $25 instead of 10. That's what I'm talking about when I say marital synergy. You won't believe what you can create when you do that. You don't need to tear it down. You just need to reawaken that love. If it's a situation like John was writing about, I love you, but I'm not in love. You need to reawaken in love. And reawakening in love doesn't mean it's going to be like when you were in love, where you gave each other attention 24/7, because now you got kids, now you got a life, now you're developing individually. But in love means you're going to have that. Back in love is mature, in a mature sense, in an evolved sense. Maybe we call it evolved romance, means that you're going to court each other constantly. If you and your partner are fine, but you're not really feeling fulfilled, particularly in your relationship, it's time to do something. We have a free community with resources that will help you. If you want to talk to me, you can reach me through the free community. As a member of the free community, one of the gifts that you get is a complimentary call with me that will help you figure out your next steps. And that's all it is. It's not a sales call. I'm not going to be selling. I'm going to be helping you find the next step that makes sense. So go to richinrelationship.com, get the tools. And if you want to have the call, feel free to reach out, because this is like my personal mission, my personal fulfillment comes from helping couples who want, who crave, who need, who desire an emotional bank account that is got a high yield interest, CD interest. See you and they're interested, right? That's what I live for. And for a lot of reasons I've talked about here on Rich in Relationship. So in the meantime, have a fantastic day and an amazing tomorrow. And thank you for being a listener, and I hope participant in Rich in Relationship.